There we go. And welcome everybody to Friday afternoon at the Manor. And my name is John Joseph Mastandrea. I'm the minister here. And we have this series has been going since September. And each week we have a wonderful array of interesting people learning about their journey and taking us from environment to books and other great events and moments in time. And today it's a two-parter. We have Ellen Schwartzel speak on nature and trails, walking, and also part two will be Mia Delia, who we'll hear a bit later. But Susan Johnson uh, had an idea way back, and as a result of this, this idea was born. And there's a Peter Wilkins coming in now. Is that the Peter Wilkins I know who's related to Anna Sarkady? I'm not sure, but oh, that's another Peter Wilkins.
From
Okay.
ESG.
Okay, great. Okay, great. Well, good to have you here. And then we have a few people. Okay, so we continue. And over to you, Susan, to introduce our speakers.
Okay, thank you very much for coming. I hope you enjoy what we have today. As he says, in the second half, we're going to find out about hot cross buns, good recipe. But first of all, we've got Ellen Schwartzel, who is going to let us know about all the wonderful nature available in Toronto, all our ravines and hiking trails and just places to go. You don't have to leave the city to get away from the city. So Ellen, please fill us in.
Terrific, thank you. And let me know if you have any trouble hearing me. I'm going to aim for share screen and maximize, and I hope that all that good stuff works. And then we should be able to take it away. Let me see if I can maximize, which would be nice, wouldn't it? Here we go. How does that look to people? Can you see?
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
It looks good?
Yes.
Brilliant.
Just keep letting me know if there's any issues.
And Alan, would you like people to wait till the end to ask questions, or are they okay to ask questions now? What's your preference?
I think I'm going to go through this at a fairly rapid clip. It'll be about 30 minutes, and then we will have loads of time to chat.
Okay,
and
perfect.
I really do love the chat part. So
perfect. So let's mute everyone mute. Yeah, good.
Super. Yeah, so thanks so much for having me, and I'm with the Toronto Field Naturalists. I'm the president of the Toronto Field Naturalists, and I'm also a son from Bloor Street United Church. So hello, neighbors. And it's great that we can get together today to talk about Toronto's ravines, which is what I really want to focus on. And I hope someday soon we may be able to explore the ravines together. Meanwhile, I encourage you and your families and friends to discover a ravine near you. And I know that we're spread all over the city today. I heard Downsview, I heard Merton Street. So it's not just one locality. But the ravines are definitely a place to find nature in the middle of a big city. So we know, of course, that every city has special places. Toronto has the Great Thames River with many famous bridges, and Ottawa has the Rideau Canal, which is wonderful in winter when you can skate for miles. I've done that myself. Vancouver has, of course, all that great oceanside beach territory and Stanley Park as well, so that's terrific. But Toronto has ravines, and we have over 11,000 hectares of beautiful green natural forested lands, and that's nature at our footsteps, at our doorsteps. And I think today I just want to focus on the ravines, although there's other great parkland as well. And we can talk about what the ravines do for us and also what we can do for the ravines. For a start, I encourage all of us to visit Toronto's ravines. Now that may seem obvious, but in fact, not everybody knows that the ravines are there and available to us. About 60% of Toronto's ravine lands are public lands, so they're open to all. And there are over 500 kilometers of trails that are spread throughout the ravine network. And about half of those are paved. So they're easy to use, and there's signage. And again, as I say, we will often find ravines close to our homes. Toronto ravines are definitely for families. Mind you, they're also for joggers, they're for cyclists, they're for people who want to stroll slowly and really experience nature, and for those who want to exercise and move fast. So lots and lots of people enjoy Toronto's ravines, and you won't be alone on the trails. So let's look a little bit at the trail system generally. This gives you a big map of the area, and you'll see that Toronto's ravines are natural green valleys running through our city. Each ravine has a river or a creek flowing along the bottom, of course, and Toronto's rivers have their beginnings up north in their headwaters, so to speak, in the area of the Oak Ridges moraine. So up here in a landscape of forested hills and mingled with farmlands and wetlands. So this is the area of the Oak Ridges moraine and the Greenbelt. And governments and community groups of all kinds have worked hard to keep this area protected from development. Let's look a bit more closely at Toronto's river systems. So again, the rivers flow from north to south into Lake Ontario, of course. And what we have is we have the Humber River in the west, the Don in the middle, more or less east of Yonge Street, and we have the Rouge on the east end. So those are the three major rivers. And the Humber, the Don, and the Rouge, they all flow into Lake Ontario, as I said. So our ravines form a network for nature, for water, and for wildlife. They connect the Oak Ridges moraine to Lake Ontario, and that's important. The ravines, with their forests and meadows, they connect and protect our water. They slow the water down, they keep it cool, and they help to filter the water. Toronto's rivers begin underground, again, way up there on the Oak Ridges moraine, and under those hills, we have a lot of gravel that was laid down or left behind by the last ice ages, thousands of years ago. And that gravel holds a lot of clean groundwater, and all that groundwater is the beginning of Toronto's rivers. As the rivers flow south, of course, more and more of their watersheds are covered in buildings and pavement, roads, parking lots, sidewalks. So Toronto's watersheds are mostly paved over, and there's less and less green space to soak up the rain and to hold it. If we look around the next time we're out, we notice how much of our streets are paved over, even in residential areas. There are only patches of green space left often. And in downtown areas, like here around the Royal Ontario Museum, there are really only rare patches of exposed soil in planters. All that hard pavement means that snow and rainwater runs off roads, buildings, rooftops, parking lots, sidewalks, and it goes directly into the storm sewers and from there into the creeks and rivers. It runs off really fast because there's little or no soil to soak it up and hold it and let it slow down. Like many other cities, Toronto has been seeing more flooding in recent years. And partly that is just because so much of our land has been paved over. Partly it's also a reality of a changing climate. We are getting more intense weather, including heavier rainstorms. Together, the paved over land plus the changing climate means we see more flooding. Floods can happen very fast and cause a lot of damage. This flood happened on Finch Avenue in 2005. So this was one of 8 extreme weather events that had happened in the previous 20 years. And it was a record rainfall. It caused flash flooding and washed out a portion of Finch Avenue, but also caused problems in major problems in Highland Creek. There was damage to public and private property estimated between $400 and $500 million. And it also flooded over 4,200 basements and damaged stream banks, creeks, trees, parklands. And of course, what you see here are all the utilities that were broken. It was a major, major event. Now, this event we may remember, this was more recently, this was July 8, 2013. And on that storm event, many rivers and creeks in Toronto area flooded, and the GO train line in the Don Valley flooded. It stranded 1,400 GO passengers for over 7 hours. And it also flooded over 4,700 basements across the city. And the cost estimates there range up into $1 billion. So stormwater that comes off events like this or any sort of summer storm is not so clean. As it washes through the streets, it carries all the dirt and trash that had built up during the previous storm. Invisible pollutants like road salt are also dissolved in the stormwater. During a summer rainstorm, our stormwater also mixes with sewage because we have combined sewers in the older parts of Toronto. So what gets washed into Lake Ontario after a storm is a mix of stormwater and untreated sewage. So this is a panorama photo, and it shows what Toronto Harbor looked like after one of these summer storms in 2015, when that mix of stormwater and sewage gets washed into the lake. Now, of course, we also want to keep in mind that our drinking water, Toronto's drinking water, comes from Lake Ontario. It's drawn from Lake Ontario. So we have all kinds of reasons to keep our lake healthy and our water clean. So if you consider all of that, we know that Toronto's ravines have a huge job to do to help absorb, slow down, store, cool, and filter Toronto's stormwater before it flows into Lake Ontario. Without our forested ravines, we know that our flooding problems would be a lot worse. The city knows the ravines are a huge asset, but they have never yet been able to put a dollar value on the services that our ravines provide. These days, though, the city managers are actually working on exactly that, on doing an economic benefit analysis of the ravines. So far, what I've talked about in terms of the ravines is more the ravines as essentially part of our civil engineering. They're like the ravines wearing hard hats, the tough, hard job that they do for us. And I think what I want to talk about now are more of the soft services that the ravines provide to us that are no less important. Because we know that in Toronto, nature changes dramatically over the seasons. We know that we're just about to head into a season of big changes. And every month brings wonderful new developments in nature, and the ravines let us enjoy all those changes up close. In spring, for example, we can find trilliums and other ephemeral spring flowers in the ravines. And of course, the trilliums are the official flower for Ontario. But in the fall as well, the beautiful fall colors that tourists come to this part of the world to see, we can enjoy them in our backyards, essentially. So the autumn is a particularly wonderful time to visit the ravines and to learn how the natural world gets ready for winter. Kids can enjoy the fall leaves too. They may want to jump into the leaves, or they can make art collages with them. In winter, our ravines can be especially beautiful. Our ravines let us enjoy nature all year round, and that's important because our winters are just so very long. Toronto's ravines include large forest trees, wetlands, wooded hillsides, and open grasslands. So quite a range of terrain. And that means that many different kinds of birds with many different needs can all find conditions that suit them well. Shelter, food, habitat, nesting materials, it's all there in the ravines for them. And as well, the ravines are safe green pathways that they can use to travel when they migrate, for example, north in the spring into northern Ontario, or if they're migrating south towards the lake, they can use the ravines as green corridors. Of course, we all know people who love birds. Maybe we're bird watchers ourselves. And for many, birds are their favorite way to connect with nature, even in winter. Some people travel thousands of kilometers to add to their bird lists, but Toronto ravines are actually a very good place to do birding. Over 140 species of birds are known to actually nest in the Toronto area. So they raise their families here. And a far larger number of birds just come through in a migratory way. So over 320 species of birds have been seen at Tommy Thompson Park, and that's the Leslie Street Spit. Kids are naturally curious about birds as well. Even very small kids can get excited about birds. Birds are a great way to introduce kids to nature. Ravines provide food for birds and other animals at all seasons. This happens to be a chokecherry, and it's a bush in the rose family, and the berries aren't very tasty to humans, but robins love them. Other kinds of birds love them. Later in the season, we'll find dogwood berries in the ravines. And again, dogwood berries are great food for wildlife, including cardinals, cedar waxwings, grosbeaks, finches. So these native shrubs provide all kinds of great food resources for birds and other wildlife. Some types of birds in Toronto, they stay all year round. And the ravines are especially very important to birds that need forested habitat. The nuthatch is one example, and you can hear from the name, the nuthatch, that its food is often nuts and seeds. We're all familiar with the cardinal, as wonderful bright red bird, and it lives in Toronto all year round as well, and often likes habitat in the ravines. Other birds raise their families much further north and only come to the Toronto area and to the ravines in the winter. Juncos would be one example. So they go north again in the spring. They just essentially, they shelter in the ravines for the winter. Now, warblers are a group of birds that migrate often very, very long distances. And a large number of species of warblers come through Toronto in the migratory time. And some of them come from as far away as Central or even South America. The tiny blackpoll warbler, for example, and it weighs only about 12 grams, it flies an annual round trip of about 20,000 kilometers from the boreal forests of North America to its winter home in the Amazon basin. Another really small bird, the Canada warbler, breeds in Ontario too, but it winters in Ecuador and Peru as far south as Lima. Canada warblers can be found in flocks high up in the Andes Mountains, but during migration, we can sometimes see them in Toronto ravines. In Toronto, spring bird migration begins in March, so right about now is when we can start looking. But the best time, the peak time for bird migration is mid-May in Toronto. Ravines are safe places for many birds to raise families. Some species of birds, they're evolved to nest on the ground. And so for them, dogs, especially off-leash dogs, are a real problem. So in Toronto, there are a few places where fences have been put up in an effort to protect ground nesting birds and give them a safe place to nest. Ravines are places where we can see wildlife close up. And it may be something as simple as a butterfly, this black swallowtail, for example. Or sometimes we may just see signs of wildlife and need to interpret them. This chewed up tree stump, for example, says something